It's too hot for this shit. Whew, I might put it back on later, but that shit's way too fucking hot. So, I remember when growing up, I would always have like a specific character I would always gravitate to at any given point in time. Like there would be characters that I would just say like, hey, at this point in time, for whatever reason, I loved this character more. And for me, the main character I always loved was Spider Man, and I've loved him ever since I was like 3 or 4. Like I have loved, Spider Man since forever. Like, um, he's the first hero that I've ever seen his movies. He's the first hero I've ever seen his cartoons. He's the first hero I ever bought his own merchandise with my own money. So like, and I used to, whenever I would get like depressed in middle school or high school, for me, like I would gravitate towards film. I would gravitate towards film or TV shows to kind of try and get my mind off of things and to try and like, escape. And for me, the common film that I would always go to no matter what was always like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. And I would always watch it because I could relate a lot to, Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man because I'm like, I didn't really ever like come from much. It wasn't like my parents ever had like tons of money. Like, for instance, my fucking dad was, someone that never could keep a job to save his life. That man was jumping from job to job, like if it was like if like if it was a fucking level in a video game, like he was going from job to job like that. My mom was the only one that ever could keep a consistent job, so because of that, it's not like we ever really had much. So I could relate to him on that. I could relate to his struggles. I could relate to like his living situations and whatnot. And so for me, even at a young age, it made me relate to him a lot, and it made me want to, uh, watch those stories more. So whenever I would get really down and low, I would always watch Spider-Man 2 or even just watch the train scene fight. And for me, that was something that could just take me out, and it was kind of like my happy place. And, you know, like growing up, I've had different kinds of like, Spider-Man lore that I've learned over time that like I didn't know at first. Like for instance, it's a big misconception that like for Spider-Man, he has organic webbing. A lot of people still believe that he has organic webbing because of Tobey's films. Now, I'm actually coming from, the stance of kind of knowing like the Sam Raimi films before I do the comics, and then I got really into the comics after the Sam Raimi films. The Sam Raimi films got me into comics, and now I, have a fucking weekly pull list or whatever, or monthly, anyways. Um, Looking back and hearing that Peter doesn't have, organic web shooters, it always kind of like confused me. Because how the fuck is a character titled Spider Man and he can't shoot his webs on his own? Like that doesn't even make any sense. And like my question also for the comics was like, yeah, he could stick on walls and he had proportional strength of a spider, but like the only thing he had was he got bitten by a spider and he's like, all right, I gotta make webs. Like I don't know. Like I don't know. Like there's not enough for me to be like, oh, you got spider powers. Like yeah, you call your power the spider sense, but like your webbing really should come from your wrist. And I've always felt that way, even though I know like it's not lore accurate or whatever. But here's my issue with the web shooters. In most media, unless it's a TV show, in most media, they never treat the web shooters as if they are a mechanical thing. They treat it more like it's an organic thing. You rarely ever see, Spider-Man having to change out his web shooters. It is a very rare thing in the films. I can't really remember much instances other than, and of course, it's been a while since I've seen the Andrew Garfield films, but like for Tom Holland, I remember him on like the ferry on the ferry freight in Homecoming, and he went like this to like reload his web shooters, and it's like he doesn't like the Spider-Man don't really reload their web shooters all that often. So like realistically, there's not much of a difference between him having organic or not. And so like that's the first issue, and then the other issue is in the comics, whenever a web shooter goes out or whenever a web shooter breaks, has always been inconsistent. Now breaking, not so much, but the web shooters, how long they last, it's always been inconsistent. And you could go for like, in some of the comic runs, you could go an entire fucking comic run and you've never seen Spider-Man reload his web shooters, not a single time. So you can go entire storylines and never see him reload his web shooters. Sure, he may equip his web shooters, but he never fucking reloads them. And so I have to ask, like, if the web shooters aren't that integral to the story, why does it matter if it's organic or not? I've never understood that. Um, but another thing that was interesting to me was something that I've realized when it comes to Spider-Man that has not made sense also. Good segue for this. Is so Spider-Man's like whole thing is Spider-Man's whole thing is that, he is a grown-ass man who, yes, lives, sometimes paycheck to paycheck, but usually, what he is that, like, he figures out his relationship issues, he figures that shit out, he gets the girl more often than not. And trust me, it's usually more often than not. Like, Spider-Man in the comics is a huge ladies man. Like, he's dated, like, some of the most, conventionally attractive women in all of the Marvel universe. Like, he's dated Carol Danvers, for better or for worse. He's dated Mary Jane Watson, Gwen Stacy. Uh, I don't know if he dated Betty Brant. I don't know if that would count. Um, he dated Carly Cooper. I think that's her name. He dated Black Cat. Like, he just has some of the most conventionally attractive, like, lineups that he's ever, like, he's gotten better women than, like, even in some cases Tony Stark. So it amazes me that they turned him into a cuck. Like, I've never understood that. So basically, in recent comics, like in the last like 2 to 3 years, what they have done is they have turned Spider-Man into another version of Deadpool, realistically. And it doesn't work. Because a lot of the things that happen to Spider-Man is more shit you would see in a Deadpool comic, more so than you would for Spider-Man. For instance, Spider-Man getting cucked. So, for instance, okay, so how he got cucked. Basically, there was a run, I believe it was by a writer named Nick Spencer. I might be mistaken on that. Haven't read the run in years, don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's the writer's name. So Nick Spencer, he writes a run of Spider-Man, and it basically, you know, comes together with the ending of showing that Peter and MJ are finally going to be a couple. And for those who don't know, Peter and MJ have been broken up at that point for at least 10 plus years because he made a deal with the devil. Casual Tuesday shit. That's how you end like decades of marriage. So basically, what ends up happening is that they make it seem like they're going to get back together. The very next start of the run, they're broken up, and it's 6 months later, and you don't know what happened. And MJ's with a new guy, and they have kids. You later find out that Peter fought some kind of Egyptian god looking thing, whatever. He fought him, went to a different dimension. MJ went with him. The Egyptian god, for some reason, wants MJ because of her red hair. And so eventually, short version, they have to send someone back. MJ opts to push Peter so that he's saved. Peter goes through hell trying to get back to her. And when he eventually gets back to her, he finds out the time moved differently there. Even though Peter was really fast in our world, he wasn't fast enough in the other world because in the other world, 4 years had passed. And so MJ ends up going out with this guy that was in the other dimension, and they have kids together. And you're like, okay. So you're led to believe at first that like those are Paul and MJ's kids, especially since one of them looks identical to MJ as a little girl. And so obviously this cucks Spider-Man because he's literally trying to get back with her the entire issue, and she basically wants nothing to do with him. She's like, oh, you're just pissing me off. So this is one of the issues that I have is that they write Spider-Man to be insufferable, and they write his supporting cast to be insufferable. This is not a fun comic to read. I don't read this comic and I'm like, man, I'm so happy. No, I'm like, I'm reading this and I'm getting stressed. I'm reading this and I'm getting annoyed. And I'm like, is this going to get any better? Like it's annoying. So, you find out that Paul and MJ can't even fuck because he has ED. So that's how you find out that the kids aren't theirs. They just kind of found them out in the wild, and then you find out they're not even real, so they get killed. Don't know why they were there, but whatever. And another issue with Paul that I have to mention, Paul is drawn inconsistently in his initial run. If you look at how Paul is from issue to issue, you can tell that they did not know how they wanted this guy to look, because in every other comic, he looks like a different person. Like, the only reason as to why at times I'm able to tell who he is because he's with MJ and he has glasses. Because half the time he looks like a different person from comic to comic. He never looks consistent. Half the time he looks scrawny. The other half, he's smaller than Spider-Man. Like, I don't know. Like, at one point, he looks like a fucking Jason Momoa knockoff. Like, he's never consistent. He's never drawn consistent. He never has this consistent proportions. From one second, he's skinny, and next minute, he's buff like the Hulk. Like, I'm like, damn, what the fuck did you take off screen? So they kind of try to inflate Paul. They kind of try to make him, more desirable and shit, even though he can't fuck MJ and their kids are dead. So, like, we're just sitting here in this perpetual relationship torture where they're literally cucking Spider-Man and his bitch is with someone else. And it's like, I don't want to read that. I don't want to read that. Like, here's the thing. I don't even have an issue if editorial is saying, like, hey, we don't want them to be married. I personally would rather them married, but if I have to choose between them married, or, like, them not getting married, because they're never going to get married again, which is unfortunate. If I have to choose between crying about them not being married and them never getting together, or them getting together but not getting married, I'm going to choose that one. I'm going to choose that one because at least they're together. And so, for some reason, editorial really hates MJ, so they write her as this really annoying girl boss in the comic, where it's not really fun. Like, don't get me wrong, like, if you read 1990s MJ, that is peak MJ. Beautifully written. I love 90s MJ. I love her hair too. Beautiful. So, because that's, I think, the only time that I've ever really seen MJ with curly hair. They've never really drawn her with curly hair, at least not that I've seen in recent comics. I've always seen it with straight. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I had to stop reading The Amazing Spider-Man. I got tired of it. After this. But, so, they're, doing a whole thing, and Peter's with her, trying to, like, get back with her, and she's like, no, I'm not interested. She keeps talking to him about responsibility. They talk about each other like they're siblings, and it's like, we don't want this. Like, this is a relationship we've wanted for decades to be back, and at least two. And they just dangle it in front of our face, like, every single time. And the other thing is, they also love to write Spider-Man as torture porn. Now, here's the issue with writing Spider-Man as torture porn. That's a role suited for Deadpool. That's the reason why he has, like, a healing factor. And what they ended up doing instead was basically giving Spider-Man, 9 lives in the fucking most recent run that he had, where he had 9 lives, and 9 lives or 12 lives, I don't remember. But they kept killing him in more and more gruesome ways. And that's the kind of stuff you would see for Deadpool. The whole, torturing them psychologically, mentally, and especially physically, those are the kinds of things that you would give to Deadpool. Like at one point, Peter breaks, like mentally breaks to the point where he doesn't even want to save anyone. He's like, "What's the point in life?" That's not Peter. That, and I get the whole point was he's broken. He's gonna act out of character. I'm aware, but we've seen Peter in similar situations, not quite exact, but similar situations where he's been beaten down, his morale is down. But Peter has always been the one to be like, "No, like if anyone's gonna stick up to like for what's right, it's gonna be me." And to see him just quit when he knows he can save people is written extremely out of character. I don't care if you're saying like, oh, he just was mentally broken or whatever. How they mentally broke him didn't even make sense. It didn't even make sense. So they torture him through mental bullshit with his girlfriend. They torture him in a run where he's getting consistently murdered. They torture him in a run where he's consistently getting tortured and beaten by just about every fucking villain that comes through his way. And like he can't win to save his life. Like it's ridiculous. At one point he's like captured and put into handcuffs. I don't care if they're reinforced handcuffs. It's fucking Spider-Man. This motherfucker can share blows with the Thing and the Hulk and Thor. I don't give a fuck. He shouldn't be reserved or held back by handcuffs unless those bitches are made out of adamantium or vibranium. But either way. Um and that's the thing. It's not even just in the main line that he's being treated horribly. So in an alternate universe that came out recently as in like the last year, it was called like something. It was a sequel to a story called X-Men: Days of Future Past. I don't fucking remember the name of this story, but like this sequel story. I don't remember the name of the sequel story. So look, we'll call it Days of Future Past 2. We'll just call it that. So Days of Future Past 2 is more of a prequel. While yes, it does touch on things in the future, mostly talks about how the war started essentially between the Sentinels and humanity. And you find out that Spider-Man was killed by an angry mob because he shows up to Avengers Mansion and there's an angry crowd there thinking that the Avengers are mutants and they're like, we must kill the muties, we must kill the muties. And Spider-Man's like, hey guys, like I don't think we should be fighting, like it's okay. And somehow his spider sense doesn't go off that someone's about to hit him with like a lead pipe, like a full-on like pipe. He doesn't somehow notice that. So they hit him in the head and he's like, all right, time for me to go. And he tries to web and get out. And when he tries to get out, one other person pulls him down. And the crowd is able, like two people, just two, are able to hold back Spider-Man so that he can get beaten with a brick in the face. And he gets beaten to death by the angry mob, and Wolverine basically says everyone knows he could have gotten out of it, but he didn't want to hurt anyone. And so, it's kind of crazy to think that someone would just let themselves get beaten to death. And that's what Wolverine says. He's like, it's kind of crazy to think someone would just let themselves get beaten to death. One, that's just shitty writing. Two, Spider-Man has insane strength and durability. He would not get taken down by a normal civilian like that. That just wouldn't happen. Secondly, the idea that Spider-Man wouldn't hurt people when they're being violent, he would. He would. He takes down armed bank robbers all the time, and these people are literally with weapons, with baseball bats and pipes and bricks, and they're willing to beat people to death. And he's like, nah, instead of hurting these civilians, I'm going to let them beat me to death and let it so that MJ and Aunt May die. And here's the issue with that. It's been established multiple times in the comics that Spider-Man has to roll with the punches because most of the time he barely feels it, and if he doesn't roll with it, he's going to basically break your wrist, like if you're a normal civilian. So these people are beating him to death. Realistically, it would take like triple the work to get it done. And 20 mob people were able to beat Spider-Man to death, but the Sinister Six couldn't, the Hulk couldn't, the Avengers couldn't. So you're telling me he can dodge all the Avengers' attacks all at the same time, but a couple of Joe Schmoes like me and you can take down Spider-Man? Okay, cool. I'm glad we're writing him with consistency. Thank you, Marvel. So not only do they like to kill him in mainline and out of continuity stories like a bitch. They love to kill him like a bitch. Every chance they get. Hell, even with fucking Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe again. Don't get me wrong, I'm aware Deadpool always has plot armor, but like the dude killed him with a sticky bomb, bro. Like he got close, put a sticky bomb, and somehow Spider-Man with the intelligence of Doc Ock doesn't realize or sense it. Like I don't know. Here's my issue. If you want to kill Spider-Man, here's the easiest way to do it. Get a venomized sniper and a venomized bullet. There you go. He's dead. Because it has been established Spider-Man cannot sense venom. Put venom on a symbiote, make a symbiote sniper with a symbiote bullet. He can't sense it. He can't sense it. He ain't gonna dodge that sniper bullet. He's dead. He ain't gonna sense shit. There you go. I don't understand why no one's ever done that. You can write this other bullshit where he can die to a sticky bomb, but a venomized sniper might be just too outlandish. You have Agent Venom. You can make it work. Just turn like weapons like venomized, just how Ghost Rider turns shit into demonic shit. I don't see why that's so hard. But another thing they've been doing with Spider-Man is that they've turned him from a jokey jokester to an annoying character. And that's the issue, is that's another characteristic of something like Deadpool. Deadpool is more of the kind of person that goes through life and doesn't take anything seriously. Peter takes shit seriously. He does take shit seriously. It's when he's Spider-Man that he acts more jokey. But the issue is that they've wrote, as of late, Peter and Spider-Man as if they're the same character. And by doing that, you've lost the core part of a lot of good Spider-Man stories is Peter Parker. Because when Peter Parker is acting carbon copy like Spider-Man, there's no difference. And that's the whole point of having like a secret identity, is you act different from your main counterpart. You act different from your superior identity. Case in point, Bruce Wayne versus Batman, they're night and day difference. And that's kind of the same with Peter and, Spider-Man. Not to like the same extreme, but they're not exactly the same. They are different in very unique ways. And Spider-Man has more confidence, he has more jokey manner, he's more sarcastic, shit like that. What they've done is they've turned Peter into the jokester who is occasionally corny, and then that's also impacted Spider-Man, but now worse. So now instead of Spider-Man's jokes being funny, they're more of like, oh, this dude's so annoying. And that's not how he was ever written. You can go back to any old comic. Spider-Man's always been written to be funny. Hell, even some of the villains are like, I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of funny. That was kind of good. Half the time, the way the villains know if it's him or not is how good his jokes are. Like with Green Goblin, when he comes back, he's like, oh, Doc Ock, you don't have as good banner as like Peter. Whenever Peter comes back, Peter's, making a quip, and he's like, bitch, it's you. Like, it's a defining fact of him, and it's been lost because now he's just Deadpool. He's just Deadpool. Let's torture him like Deadpool. Let's make him lose relationships like Deadpool. Let's make him not funny like Deadpool. Let's make him annoying like Deadpool. Really, at this point, there's no difference between him and Deadpool. Hell, there's been points in the fucking stories where they've disrespected Peter so much. His sperm in one comic was radioactive and it killed MJ. Like, I don't know. So, like, not only have you disrespected this character who has, in a lot of ways, saved your company many times over, you've disrespected this character forever. You won't let him get married because even the writers have decided to write themselves into comics to beat up Peter so that he can't be with MJ. That was a recent Spider-Man Infinity comic where he fought like one of the writers, like literally in the comic, one of the writers wrote himself into the comic so he could beat up Peter. And he's like, I can control you. I can tell you if you have no super strength or you have no web shooters, you can't use them against me. And he's like beating him up. He's like, you aren't leaving this comic alive. Like he's trying to kill him because the comic got canceled. And I get it's supposed to be meta, but it's like, why are we doing this? Like, I don't want to see a writer insert, like, this nasty, disgusting, decrepit-looking writer writing himself into a Spider-Man comic so he can almost kill him. Like, that's not something I want to read. So, a lot of these fucking Spider-Man comics turn into, like, torture porn or fucking, like, cucking and shit. And at that point, it loses a lot of interest for me. And the other thing is, they also turned Spider-Man into like this fan obsessed, like rookie type, and that's mostly started around the time of like the Tom Holland films and shit. And I get that, but that's not how Spider-Man acted. He's never acted like a fanboy. So to see him be this simp cuck who can't do anything right and can't function in basic day-to-day society, like literally the person who stole his girlfriend had to pay him out of debt. This is not what I want to watch. This is not what I want to read. Like, the issue with Spider-Man is that they've lost the plot and they've decided that they just want to torture my boy for whatever reason, and that they think that marriage stories would be hard to write. Here's my issue. If you think the marriage stories are hard to write, then you shouldn't be writing Spider-Man. Plain and simple, because that's what Spider-Man was. He was a marriage story. So the idea that people don't want to read a married couple is bullshit, because Superman and Lois have been married in comics for what, like 5, 8 years at this point? It's been a while. They've been married, they had a kid, they've been moving along, and everyone loves it. I can only imagine what would happen if we had Spider-Man marry the person he was meant to be with. Holy shit, I could only imagine. But Marvel over there, they've been making a lot of stupid decisions. Honest to God, half of their stupid decisions, and no one ever wants to admit it, half of their stupid decisions are impacts of Kevin Feige. Because I truly do feel that, like, the twink era Peter, that's because of Kevin Feige putting that shit in. Now, in terms of Peter getting cucked, no, that's Marvel editorial and shit. And honest to God, I don't understand why you want to bully, kill, cuck, and mistreat a character that brings you tons of fucking money. Like, I understand if the character didn't do anything for you, but the character literally has probably the most running issues at any given time. They have expanded the Spider-Verse to crazy proportions. At this point, Miles Morales is acting more mature than Peter. If anything, Miles is acting more like how Peter used to act. So, like, you're willing to make all this money off of him, but whether or not you're willing to respect him is a different thing. And I think that this is where two rules of thought come in that I think have ruined Spider-Man. I think two things have ruined Spider-Man. I think one is the MCU, and I think two, which I know it's going to sound very sacrilegious, is I think Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2. Now, for me, the reason why I'm saying that, and that's coming from someone who loves Spider-Man 2, I think that Marvel Comics editorial is just as big of a fan of Tobey Maguire as we are. We have seen that over the last year where they've referenced the Tobey Maguire films down to exact wordage in the comics. So clearly Marvel editorial is a big fan of Tobey Maguire. Now, what was a big thing that went on in the the movies of Tobey Maguire? He got cucked in the first film because MJ was with Harry. He got cucked in the second film because MJ was with the astronaut. Now, eventually they did get together, but he got cucked for 2 films. And technically got cucked in the third film a little bit because she cheated on him. So that happens. Then you have Peter in the second film, which is the one that everyone loves. You have him not having everything quite figured out, and he's trying to figure himself out, right? And then you have, the whole reason as to why a lot of people, love the Tobey Maguire films is because the relatability. They're like, oh, he's so relatable and shit. So I think Marvel Comics took inspiration from those parts, and only those parts, and said, we're going to make that the entirety of the comic Spider-Man. So we're going to cuck him, like how he was cucked in all 3 films, which, those require more explanation. It's not exactly cucking, but you could look at it as such. So you got the cucking in the 3 films. You have MJ cheating on him in the 3rd film, which is exactly what is happening, or what happened with Paul. Then you have Peter down on his luck and trying to figure his way out. And in the comics, Peter's trying to figure his way out. I think that they took the worst lessons you could take from the Tobey Maguire films and put those into the comics. Because I think they misunderstood it. And then I think that Kevin Feige, because he turned Spider Man into a fucking huge ass fanboy, I almost said fun boy, this huge ass fanboy, a lot of his other iterations are kind of like twinks. They're kind of like little anime boys. If anything, Spider Man acts more like Deku in some comics. And it feels very unnatural from what he used to be like. Hell, look at Lego Spider Man. That shit especially is disgusting what they did to my boy. Um, so it's insane. Like you're ruining him in comics, um, horribly. You're ruining him in TV shows and other media. Like it's insane to me because don't get me wrong, DC disrespects Superman and Batman from time to time, but like I don't know if it's as bad as Marvel loves to like peg the shit out of Spider-Man. Like I love how in every other comic that's not a Spider-Man comic, everyone's like, "You're the best of us, Peter. Peter's gonna be the best hero ever. He's gonna be the best of all of us, even better than Captain America." And then in his own comic, he's getting dicked around like he's a bitch. Like it's annoying. It's so, and it's not like I'm not like a fan of fucking Spider-Man. Like for fuck's sake, like this, if I can get it right, this is my promise ring. Sorry, I guess it's too blurry. This is my promise ring. It has the symbols of Tobey Maguire Spider-Man on it. So I have that. I have this. I have a fucking tattoo of Spider-Man. And I have other shit like fucking this, which this is actually like the first ever Spider-Man toy I've ever had. My dad got me this. He got it from a yard sale. And then I have this, which is my first ever Spider-Man plush I had. I got this when I was like 8, and I went to a Islands of Adventure. So his whole thing is that like you can kind of bend him because he's got like wire in him, so you can kind of like form him to be however you want and move him to like your heart's content wherever you feel like you desire. It's kind of cool. He's a very posable plush. It's kind of cool. And then, from my girlfriend, I got these two. I have a Spider-Man controller, and she gave me a Hot Toys of Tobey Maguire, which is fucking peak. So, it's not like I don't like Spider-Man. I fucking love Spider-Man. Spider-Man for me got me out of like a very rough point in my life. He's gotten me out of many rough points in my life because I always looked at Spider-Man 2 more so from the sense of not that Spider-Man was getting cucked, not that Spider-Man was not getting the girl, not that Spider-Man was down on his luck and couldn't figure his shit out. It wasn't stuff like that. What I took from the film is realistically what I feel like a lot of people should take, which is that you could have literally the lowest point in your life. You could lose your girlfriend. You can lose someone close to you in terms of family. You could not be in the best living situation, but you can still, be nice. You can still be kind. You can still help others. You can still get yourself out of it. It may seem insufferable. It may seem impossible, but you can push through. You can persevere. And that's why Spider-Man 2 kind of resonated with me the most out of every single Spider-Man film. Still to this day, it is my favorite because it got me out of a lot of dark times and helped me in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, like I modeled a lot of like my sarcastic humor even around Spider-Man because of like how much I love Sam Raimi's trilogy. So like I've always loved this character. This character has meant the world to me. There's almost not a single, you know, thing I can really say bad about the character up until recent years, and it's insane to think that this character that in a lot of ways has saved this company time and time again, it feels like to think that like the people that Marvel sold Spider-Man to are treating Spider-Man better than the original owners. Sony gives Spider-Man more respect than the comics do currently, and it's insane to me. Like I think, honest to God, I think the issue with Spider-Man comics and modern comics is truly the it feels that because of the MCU, comics got too popular. Comics used to be an escape for nerds. You would go and you would get your comic, and this was basically you purchasing a TV episode. So you would go and you would purchase your TV episode, and you would enjoy it in the comfort of your own home. And people would make fun of you because, hey, it has colorful pictures. So, of course, they're going to make fun of you. But, you would buy your TV episode, and, sometimes it would be really good, and other times it'd be like, oh, why the fuck did I buy this? And, that's just what comic books would be. They would be something like a TV show episode, whereas other people were watching, their TV shows or whatever, their Breaking Bad, their Game of Thrones or whatever. We were reading comics. And that was like the perfect nerdism escape. It was books made by nerds for nerds. And you would see fan service for both women and men. So like you would see shirtless guys, you would see scantily clad women, you would see intense knockdown drag out fights. You would see very colorful and vibrant popping art. Now it feels like it's just exclusive to the covers. And you would have like humor that like they just wouldn't hold back on, and you just had you had the hero get the girl. You had superhero identities mean something. And now in comics, they want to dissect the heroes down to their bare essentials. They want to strip the heroes of everything they have, or they want to put these heroes in new and in crazy situations and shit. Situations you never would have expected, like Thor losing all his powers and being mortal. Like that's it's just like realistically, I think for me, because I still collect comics, but I don't collect as much like Spider-Man or like specific character runs unless I hear that it's really good. But I'm gonna be honest, I think the last time that I didn't do that was around the time of Captain America's Secret Empire, and I don't even remember when that comic came out because it's been so long. But it almost feels like because of the success of the MCU, it feels like we've got a new kinds of editorial moving in and saying like, hey, we gotta, keep things in line with the MCU or whatever. We got, higher ups telling us. And it feels like new writers and stuff came in and they feel like hot shots. They feel like, hey, we're hot shit because we're working at Marvel. So they feel like, hey, whenever I shit, it's fucking gold, and you best fucking believe it. That's how it fucking feels. It feels like they're high off their own supply. So, it's kind of funny. So they feel like they can't write anything wrong. And so they write all of this nonsense and this fucking garbage. And it's like, I don't want to read like it. You know what it feels like? It feels like up until maybe like 2018. It felt like and don't be wrong, around 2018 it was definitely losing its luster even then. Honestly, I would say the last time I was really happy with comics was like 2014, 2013, somewhere around there. Maybe 2015. Um, but it feels like it went from nerds writing it for nerds to corporate synergy and jocks writing it for nerds. And I know that sounds weird, like, oh, jocks? No, no, no. What I mean by jocks is like, I mean it like in the sense of like, it feels like the comics half the time are written by people that don't understand either the characters or the world they're writing in. And so half the time, I'm just disinterested. I don't care. And so I'm gravitating to more comics like Sonic the Hedgehog and like fucking Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman. I'm gravitating to more comics like those because they respect the character, they respect the source material, and they respect the fans enough to give the fans what they want. I get what I want when I read those books. I leave happy, satisfied, and I feel like, hey, I just had a beautiful, nerdism fucking, TV show episode. That's how I feel whenever I read those comics. When I read Spider Man, I feel like one of my relatives just died. When I read Spider Man, I feel like one of my relatives just got jumped and I need to go and, like, beat up whoever the fuck did that. Like, I don't feel happy. I feel tense. I feel stressed. I feel annoyed. I feel disinterested. Like, it's not the same. So it's really disappointing to see the state of comics because it feels like it's written by people who don't understand. Like, now we have heroes getting cucked. We have heroes not getting the girl. We have heroes looking like simps and twinks. Again, it feels like jocks writing for nerds because that's how you would write a nerd is, oh, senpai, please step on me. I am so insufferable and so shitty. That's how they write Peter, basically. So, again, it feels like it's not written by nerds. It feels like it's written by people who are making fun of nerds. So it doesn't feel enjoyable. It feels like work. It feels exhausting. It feels tiresome. I'm not interested. Um, which is sad because Spider-Man's my favorite character, period. And to say that I'm not interested in his comics anymore, like, the only reason why I collect anything Spider-Man related is because it's Ultimate Spider-Man, and they're ending that. Because, apparently Marvel is allergic to money. No, what they're really allergic to is Peter being married, because we have a bunch of corporate suits that think he's better suited to be a Tony Stark character, because, again, they don't understand Peter. And here's another issue. Okay. Here's another thing. So they want to talk about how, oh, hey, Peter shouldn't be married because it would lead to boring stories. Do you just not know how to fucking write? Because here's the thing: we have like 20 to 30 years of Peter, being married, and somehow those were pretty banger stories. Hell, some of the best stories in Spider-Man history have him with MJ. And for some reason, Marvel editorial has been jerking the mad dick out of Gwen Stacy. And the thing is like, look, Gwen Stacy is only cool because she's dead. Gwen Stacy is only cool because Ghost Spider-Gwen exists. If Spider-Gwen didn't exist, there would be no fanfare for Gwen Stacy. The only reason why Gwen Stacy is as popular as she is because three things. Ghost Spider, which is number one. Number two is that she's dead. And number three is that she's hot. Those are the only reasons. Because when you look at Gwen Stacy, she has an iconic look. Just like MJ does. They're both hot. Like Peter bags some badass hoes. So I guess Marvel editorial is just really feeling fucking blondes right now instead of, redheads. Hey, I can't say that, like, hey, blondes, I'm dating a blonde, blondes are kind of hot. Like, I can't say that I completely disagree, but, like, for Peter, no, he prefers redheads. Get him back with his fucking redhead. And it's so annoying to see that, like, they can't just write a fucking story married. Like, here's the issue with a married spouse, right? A married spouse in comics is not that dissimilar to someone, like, just dating. So Peter's dating all these other women. These other women are meeting his family. They're meeting his supporting cast. They're meeting, his friends and his inner circle. And at some points, they even find out his secret identity. So, realistically, every single girlfriend just comes off as MJ, but again. MJ, but restarted. MJ, but half the charisma. MJ, but half the character. MJ, but we don't care. Like, it's really how it is. Every single girlfriend is off-brand MJ because that's just how it feels. Because every single one goes through the same character progression essentially as MJ in some shape or form. Like, hey, I like Peter, but Peter's acting kind of sus. I got to figure it out. I got a girl boss. So wait, what's going on? Oh, wait, hey, you can't be leaving me. You can't be leaving me out to dry. I'm a hot commodity. I'll leave you. And then, oh my God, you're Spider-Man. I don't know if I could be with you. It could be dangerous. Like, they're all the same. They're all the fucking same. They carbon copy the same girlfriend over and over again. And it's exhausting because it's like, listen, if you can repeat the MJ story over and over again, just like that, but half as interesting every single time, what's the point? So you can't write marriage, but you can write the same story over again. Oh, it would lead to boring stories. Okay, so I'm just supposed to watch him be with another girl for about a year or two, knowing that it's going to end in a year or two, just like every other girlfriend he's had ends in a year or two. So I'm literally watching a relationship, getting invested, and then you rip it out because you're like, yeah, Peter can never be happy. Like, like I'd be fine if he was actually gonna stick with one of them, but they always end for the exact same reason. Oh, you keep leaving me. I can't do this anymore, Peter. You just disappear. And he's like, I'm sorry, I just can't explain it. We're done, Peter. Or, oh my God, you're Spider-Man. Well, we can't be together because you lied to me. Like it's it's stupid. So like you can repeat the same stories over and over again, but marriage is hard. Look, if we took out those last 3 to 4 relationships he's had, we take them all out completely, wipe them off the board, and we just said, hey, continue on with MJ, guess what? Your writing is actually easier. You don't have to write that Peter's going to have a kid. But if you wanted to, that would sell comics like crazy. Look at Super Sons. Are you telling me you're allergic to money? The first son of Peter Parker, and you can make Mayday Parker canon, the longest running female led comic in all of Marvel? Like, you can't just have like fucking Spider Girl like come back in like the mainline universe, have her grow up organically and then you have Spider Boy and Spider Girl again. No, instead we're gonna give some other characters Spider Boy and Spider Girl that you don't care about, and we're gonna cancel their comics after 7 issues. Like it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. So you could have a Spider Girl and a Spider Boy that are actually related to Spider Man, which allows you to have more of a Spider Verse kind of comic centered with Peter, where he is training his children, like a Super Sons kind of comic. And you could have the brother and sister banner. You can make them twins, just like how it is in Ultimate Universe, or not twins, or closely, in age. You could do that and just have the, budding banter. You could have that and have an actual Spider Boy and Spider Girl, but instead you don't. So that there's lost potential that Ultimate took on. And then you also, in terms of the marriage, it would be easier because if you ever need someone kidnapped, kidnap the wife. I'm not trying to be a dick, but like look, either you're gonna have to abduct MJ, or you're gonna have to abduct fucking J Jonah, or you're gonna have to abduct I can't talk, abduct Aunt May or J Jonah or Mary Jane. You're gonna have to abduct one of them if you're ever gonna like kidnap them or whatever. Just kidnap the wife. Just kidnap the wife. Saves you all the trouble. And if there's anything that's going to happen, like the reader's emotionally invested because they don't want Peter's wife to fucking die. You never know if the wife's going to die. Look at the refrigerator. You never know. So, you know, like, it leads for more storytelling possibilities with the Spider-Verse. It leads to more possibilities with, character development. It leads to more possibilities with the notion of certain stories where either MJ could be a supporting character for Peter, where maybe she could be his guy in the chair, or she could be jackpot, whatever, or she could be supportive for the kids or whatever. She could do all that, and also if you wanted to, more story potential with kidnapping her, if you wanted to. You have so much story potential still that you could repeat and recycle if you wanted to with a marriage, and it wouldn't feel as tedious as it would when you have him date a girl, have them break up, have him date another girl, break up. With that, it feels repetitive. With that, it feels rinse, repeat. But if you have one consistent relationship and you have her kidnapped multiple times, you're sitting there thinking like, well, yeah, of course, who else are you going to kidnap? You wouldn't kidnap some other Joe Schmo. You would kidnap the motherfucker's wife.
So of course she's going to get kidnapped multiple times. It would make sense. So you have a way to make the stories less repetitive and convoluted and annoying and stupid and bastardizing and shit like that. You have a way to do it, and you just choose not to because you prefer blondes. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like, look, Gwen's cool and all, but like anyone with any common sense would know that Gwen is not right for Peter because Gwen never cared for Spider-Man. So the idea that people are saying that he deserves to be with Gwen, if you read Gwen's original comics, she had no personality. All her personality that she's been getting in recent comics is just them giving her what MJ used to be. Gwen is acting more like MJ, what MJ used to be whenever she returns for a limited time in the comics. And and I hate comics right now. But anyway, I'm gonna end it there because otherwise I'm gonna be here forever. Hate comics.